All right. Abhilasha ji.
Good morning, sir.
Abhilasha ji, tell us something about yourself.
Sir, my name is Abhilasha Sharma. I completed my graduation from Sri Ram College of Commerce. Thereafter, I went on to pursue my master's in commerce from Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics. During my master's, I also got an opportunity to intern at the Reserve Bank of India, and this is my first attempt at UPSC.
All right. So let us start with the Reserve Bank of India. Who is the governor of Reserve Bank of India now?
So, Mr. Shaktikanta Das.
All right. He's a bureaucrat.
Yes, sir.
By the way, he's a batchmate and a very dear friend of mine.
Okay, sir.
Right. Okay. Now, there was a little bit of controversy, and people said that instead of a hardcore economist, the government has posted a bureaucrat as the governor of RBI. What are your views on that?
Sir, I believe that the post of governor of RBI is very important one for the country, as the entire monetary policy of the country is under the aegis of the RBI only. So there are a number of factors that are to be considered before appointing a person as a governor. And I believe that Mr. Shaktikanta Das possess all those necessary qualifications. Only then he would have been appointed for such a post. And
no, that's just fine. But what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to post a bureaucrat or to post a hardcore economist in RBI as governor? What do you think?
Sir, in my personal opinion, if the government has taken the decision of posting a bureaucrat, then the thinking behind that would have been that bureaucrats are generalist people, and a hardcore economist would have a particular bias towards economics. So a generalist is in a better position to understand the situations and have a broader perspective and think about a number of scenarios which a hardcore economist might not have been able to think of. So I believe that it is okay to have a bureaucrat at such a position.
So you think that maybe if you get into the services, then at some point of time in future, you would also become the governor of RBI?
Sir, if the situation so warrant and if I have the necessary capabilities.
What do you think of the economic situation in the country at this point of time? And what do you think would be impact of pandemic, corona pandemic on Indian economy?
So the corona pandemic has hit the entire world economy in a very serious manner, and India has been affected by the same as well. But right now, the economy has started picking up. After the first wave, the economy was really hit hard, and but right now the GDP projections that are coming out are quite encouraging. And even the RBI has projected the GDP to be at 10.5%, and it has maintained its stand in the recent meeting that was held.
Abhilasha, I'm asking your views on the Indian state of Indian economy and what would be impact, not the steps taken by the RBI or the government. No, I'm not interested in that. What is your assessment of Indian economy?
Sir, I believe that the economy has started picking up because in the second wave, we are not going for nationwide lockdown. So the supply chain disruptions have been localized because localized lockdowns have been imposed. So supply chains have not been disrupted on a larger scale.
Don't you think that these green shoots, which had started coming up suddenly because of the second wave, those have all gone down? And again, today is the same problem. A whole lot of people have lost their jobs. Malls are not opening up. Even in the manufacturing activities, a lot of workers have gone back. Schools are not open. Restaurants are not open. So what do you think? That economy would grow? You are saying that the economy is expected to grow even now? Better than last year?
So it would be too soon to predict what the growth shall be. But,
no, but I am not an economist. You are an economist. That's why I'm asking you.
Sir, I believe that the impact would not be as catastrophic as it was last year.
Tell me, what do you think of corona management? Are you happy, not happy? Had you been at the helm of the affair, what action you would have taken?
Sir, regarding corona management, the pandemic management. Sir, right now the vulnerabilities in the system have been exposed. The whole country is facing a shortage of key supplies like oxygen, ventilators, and ICU beds. So right now the situation is really grim, and it reflects mismanagement.
Again, my request to you, kindly listen to the question carefully. I know about the facts. I'm not asking about the facts. I'm talking about your views on the management of corona crisis. And had you been at the helm of affair, what action you would have taken?
Okay, sir. So dealing with the first part of your question, the management of the affairs right now, I believe that the state and central governments are playing a blame game. They are blaming each other. Recently, the Delhi High Court...
Don't you think, Vilasha, I'm interrupting you again and again? Yes, that's a normal practice. Whenever there is a crisis, people will start putting blame on the other party. I'm talking about the management. What are your views? Do you think that we did a decent job, or we were visionary in our management, or did we adopt any planned action, or what?
Sir, I cannot really say that we did a very decent job, because we did, in fact, to be outspoken, we did a very pathetic job, because signs of a second wave were already predicted in October. The second...
Don't use this word pathetic. That's rather a strong word. Though I tend to agree with you, but don't use such strong word. You may say that the management was not very professional.
Okay, sir.
That's a decent word rather than saying pathetic. All right.
Okay, sir.
And then you can say, we knew about the second wave. There is a definite possibility of second wave because it had come in America, in Europe, and elsewhere. So we knew about it. Yes. And then we have a big scientific pool, big pool of doctors, and we are supposed to be a world pharmacy. But in spite of that, we did not have any solid action plan, and we did not implement that action plan. And action plan is what? Basically, number one is the infrastructure. That means hospitals, beds, ventilators, and things like that. And second is consumables like medicine, oxygen, and ambulances, and things like that. Other medicines. And then finally, in case of even death, we should have made good arrangement so that people could cremate their dear and near ones who have passed away.
Yes, sir.
So there was no good action plan, and action plan should have been prepared in consultation with the state governments and other stakeholders and experts. Even if it was discussed, it never came in the public domain. It should have come in the public domain. That this is my action plan. There's no secrecy in this. There's no confidentiality in this. So people should know exactly how many beds are available at any point of time. Whether corona comes or corona doesn't come, that's a separate issue. But that action plan should have been there. And then the communication channel, in case of crisis, in case of a problem, you have to approach such person. And this is the protocol, this is the SOP. That was not done. So what do you think of diplomacy? The so-called vaccine diplomacy.
So the country is currently involving itself in vaccine diplomacy, but it has turned it as vaccine metri, and whereby India has taken a lead in supplying the...
No. Again, I'm asking your views. Your knowledge has already been tested in the exam. We are not testing your knowledge at all. We are testing the character of yours, that means truthfulness and straightforwardness, conviction, and that kind of thing. Secondly, we are looking into the processing of your mind. How do you process information in your mind, and how do you present your case? That's why we ask for the opinion and not for the facts. Those are already available, and that you have already shown in your written examination, and that's why you are here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
please continue.
Sir, I believe the step that is being taken by the government regarding vaccine metri, it is a very nice initiative. And India being at the center of the Indo-Pacific, and it holds certain responsibility towards its neighbors as well as friendly countries. And to maintain that position, I believe we are doing the right thing in supplying the vaccines to our neighboring countries. Also, our priority is to supply the vaccine to the countries so that at least they can inoculate their health staff.
So do you think it was successful?
Sir, I believe we have been quite successful in reaching the country. We have
let me give you the feedback. We should be truthful again.
Yes,
this policy, so-called vaccine diplomacy, has resulted in disastrous results, I must say. Let us not be towing the line of the government. Don't do that. Diplomacy means what? The interest of the country is supreme. And what is the interest of the country? To look after your own people. They come first. Even America, in spite of the fact that we were getting a lot of raw material for our vaccine from America, Mr. Biden has said very categorically, no. For me, America is first, and for globe also, for the world also, American interest is the first interest. This is what is very strong. Every country looks after its own interest, and own interest means primarily the number one is its own people. So if we have not stored and produced and stored enough vaccine for our own countrymen, that means this diplomacy, so-called diplomacy of vaccine, because today there is a shortage of vaccine in this country. In Canada, America, elsewhere, for every citizen, they have stored 4 or 5 or 8 vaccines. In India, we do not have even a single vaccine for every person. And now, because we are dependent on the raw material to other countries, we are unable to produce that. First, we should have looked after the interests of our own country. And thereafter, we should have looked around and should have created goodwill for our own country. But goodwill comes much later. First comes the welfare of our own country. So, you think about it. You still may disagree with me, and you can still support vaccine diplomacy. But you talk to your parents, talk to your friends, talk to your professor, talk to a whole lot of people, and then find out whether it has really resulted in desired results or whether it was desirable or not. All right. Now, my last question.
Yes, sir.
What initiatives have been taken by the government or by this country to empower women?
To empower women.
Where does the empowerment of women come from primarily?
So the empowerment of women comes primarily from women themselves. They should first believe that they are empowered.
First, it comes from the Constitution. Equality.
Yes.
Because of that, nobody can be discriminated against. Yes. All right. What next? Then legislation. Legislation mein kya hua? Amendments. Whole lot of amendments. Women reservation and things like that.
Yes, sir.
And so then the policies.
Yes, sir.
There are many policies which empower women. So develop your answer on these lines.
Okay, sir.
Empowerment for anybody's empowerment, whether it is scheduled caste or scheduled tribe or backward or minorities or women or anyone. It comes from the Constitution because Constitution is the supreme law.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? So you get your strength being a woman from the Constitution. Nobody can discriminate you against others just because you are a woman. Yes, and sir. Thereafter, various laws and legislation, whole lot of empowerment as well. So can you read that? My last question, though I thought this would be my last question, but recently there was some amendment in the Child Labor Act. What was that?
So the Child Labor Act is, I'm not able to recall the amendment right now.
I'm trying to sensitize you on these issues because being a woman, there would be many expectations from you on issues which are related to children and women. One. Secondly, you come from a very, very prestigious institution or SRCC. So they would expect much more from you. And I see a lot of energy, a lot of truthfulness in you. But don't toe the line of the government. Have your own views. And then put up in a very decent, reasoned, logical manner. Okay. You will do very, very well. How did you do in your written examination?
Sir, it was fine.
So you expect that you will be getting at least 60% marks in written?
Sir, I'm not sure because this was my first attempt. So
it doesn't matter. I also appeared in my first attempt and got through. And I had taken electrical engineering and physics. And I never studied electrical engineering because I was electronics and then computers. Anyway, don't worry about all that. If you are done reasonably well, and if you expect more than 50%, I'm sure that you'll make it. And you must have confidence in yourself. And sote jagte so ye sochiye that you will make it to the IS. What is your first choice?
Sir, IS.
So always think that you will get into the IS. Yes, and that will help you in cracking it. All right, yes, all the very best. I'll leave it to other panel members.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Vilasha. How are you?
Hello, ma'am. Good morning. I'm fine.
Okay, Vilasha. So, starting with from the place where you belong to.
Yes, ma'am.
The situation is very critical right now, right? We are facing a lot of things over here in Delhi. So, it's a tsunami of cases. In today's newspaper, it has come that the chief minister has said that it's tsunami which was brought up in the form of this whole corona pandemic. So, I want to know, what do you think? Whose failure is it?
Ma'am, the current situation that we are facing in Delhi, in fact, in the entire country, there is not one particular party that can be blamed. It is the failure of the entire system. The state governments are lacking because they are not able to arrange the transportation of the oxygen from the places where they are manufactured. The center is lacking because they have not allotted Delhi the required quantity of oxygen that is being needed in the city. Then the citizens are also at fault here because they have been a little complacent after the first wave subsided. So all the stakeholders and all the parties are at fault here because even after the clear signs of a second wave, we became complacent in our approach. The state government was complacent. They couldn't really ramp up the health infrastructure after the first wave. We encountered the first wave. So all the parties are at fault here.
Okay, so since you are now going to enter this administrative year, you are going to become a bureaucrat in just few months after this whole interview process gets over. So, being an administrator, what do you think? What alternatives do we have at this moment of time? What can be the immediate solution which could be brought up? Do you have any alternative idea in your mind?
Ma'am, I believe, first of all, having a national, state, and then local plan for the dealing with the current crisis is the need of the hour, because without proper guidelines and proper action plan, I don't believe that situation can improve.
But that can be a long-term plan. I'm asking what can be the immediate solution at this moment of time? What can be the immediate alternatives that is there in your mind if you can think of something?
At the local administration level?
Yes.
At the local administration level, the government should try and maintain a contact with all the hospitals right now so that they can be assured that their supplies will be maintained. A clear line of communication need to be maintained so that if any shortfall arises, it can be replenished at the earliest and citizens are not made to suffer because of that, because a number of deaths are being reported because of shortage of oxygen, medicine and ventilators. So that need to be taken care of at the earliest. And if need be, contracts need to be arranged with other states where oxygen and other drugs are in surplus so that it can be arranged. And arranged at earliest and provided to the hospitals at the earliest.
Okay. Okay, Vilasha. Secondly, being a woman, what uh, what kind of problems or what kind of challenges do you think that the women are facing in this whole corona crisis pandemic, or what will be the long term impact on the overall situation of the women in the country after this whole corona pandemic, or at this particular moment of corona pandemic? What is the impact?
Ma'am, I believe that the corona crisis has affected every section of the society, but women, being a more vulnerable one, have been affected a little more. First of all, the burden of caregiving has increased on women. So, apart from the normal job losses, the several reports have predicted that the most of the jobs that have been lost are of women only. So, loss of employment is one thing, because of which financial independence of women, which is a very major issue, has been affected. Apart from that, the unpaid caregiving work has increased tremendously, and because of the time spent in at home during lockdown and isolation, the exploitation of women at home, be it physical, verbal, or emotional, has also increased. And the institutional support in form of Anganwadi workers, which earlier was available to women to take care of their health needs, has also been affected by this. So the overall health and well-being of women is also affected due to the pandemic. They are not able to access the healthcare facilities for taking care of their maternal or menstrual health as they were able to do before the pandemic. So the pandemic has really affected the overall well-being of the women.
Okay, so what can be the immediate solutions for this? What can be done for to at least come up with the lessening the impact of all these happenings which are taking place in the country? What can be the solution to it? Give me three suggestions for it.
And the first one being to direct cash transfers to women, particularly the most vulnerable belonging to economically weaker section, so that some sort of financial independence is being provided to them. Secondly, the network of ASHA workers can be mobilized so that the regular healthcare issues of women can be dealt with. And thirdly, there can be some sort of network support so that they can involve themselves in certain self-help groups or certain other sort of community mobilizations, so that they can look for alternate employment opportunities, and which they can manage from their home, because right now going out and working has been really difficult for regular wage employees. So doing certain things like tiffin services can be something which can be taken up by women to gain some sort of financial independence in this pandemic.
Financial independence is the foremost thing which should be given.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. I read that you have got Mamta Gupta gold medal. What was it for? Why did you get that?
Ma'am, I stood first in my masters in my entire batch, so I received for that in 2019.
Very nice. Okay, Mamta. So, being a topper, you would have got some privileges in the course. I mean, there is a difference always: the average, the poorest one, and the toppers. What do you think? Is it not creating a kind of inequality in the education system? Do you feel that this merit system of providing toppers some kind of good things, or we generally see that the teachers do get biased towards the toppers as compared, you would have also feel that, right? And as compared to the students who are average or below average students, do you think, is it a lacuna for our education system? Isn't it a lacuna for our education system, this merit system? What's your view on it?
Ma'am, being a topper myself, so I don't believe that this is a lacuna on the education system, because it provides motivation for students to work hard so that they can reach their level, so that they can reach that level. And as you mentioned that certain special treatment is being given to toppers by teachers, so I believe it depends upon teacher to teacher. And a number of teachers, I have been blessed to be being taught by a number of teachers who have not been that discriminative, if I may say so, in treating the toppers or a normal average student. In fact, I have been come across teachers who are more considerate towards the students who are not that good at studies. They are more concerned about them, and they place more attention on those teachers. So I believe that this is not a lacuna, but yeah, it does create a sort of mm, bad feeling among the students who are not able to reach that level. But it at the same time it acts as a motivation as well.
Nice. Okay. You told about War College in Knowledge, right? Something like that. War College in Knowledge. What was that?
Ma'am, College Ki Knowledge was a student-run
College Ki Knowledge.
initiative. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It is a student-run initiative in Sri Ram College of Commerce. It is meant to fill the gap between the information that is being generated in the college and the students, because a number of times we notice that a number of notices are being released by the college, but the same are not able to be delivered to the students at the right time. So College Ki Knowledge was an initiative so that that gap can be filled. And moreover, there were several verticals, like we conducted interviews of the successful students who had got placement or admission at some top business school. And we also covered events that are being covered in the college. So it was a student run for the students initiative in the college.
Okay. Okay, so when you were the executive member of that particular association or organization which was conducting this, you might have faced some kind of conflict, some kind of challenges, or there would have been some limitations. So, what were the challenges that you faced in such kind of interactions, and how did you dealt with it?
The biggest challenge that we faced at College Ki Knowledge was that we were a very small organization. Like, we were only a few group of people. We were managing everything on our own. So institutional support was lacking to us. So to deal with this, we contacted the college administration, and we got hand-holding support from the college as well, so that we can increase the number of recruitments to our organization. Apart from that, since we were not very big, number of students were not ready to join our uh, join our organization. So that was also a challenge. But we organized a number of events, like we organized a fest, a happiness fest, which had a very great footfall. So that was a big thing for our society, and it attracted a number of students after that. Apart from that, we also faced issues regarding the funding, because proper funding was not provided by the college, and arranging the same from private and corporate sources was a bit difficult for us, because we were at the beginning of our journey. So that was also an issue. But we tried and dealt with it by contacting the corporates, and which were interested in our cause that we were trying to work for.
Okay, so last question from my side. You wrote about Fallow's principle. Fallow's principle, right? So,
Yeah, it's principle.
yeah. So, I want to first tell me what is this principle all about?
Henry Fayol is considered as the father of management. He gave 14 principles of management, which define how the organizations work and how the administration and general management of organization is carried out. To name a few principles, these were order, authority and responsibility, unity of direction, unity of command. So these were the principles. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So I want to know how this, since you have given a paper, you have a paper published on this particular topic. You had some research on it. What do you think? After reading this whole Fayol's principle, are is the management or the bureaucracy, whatever things are happening in the country, is it being applicable, or is it being successful in providing that kind of management which Fayol was talking about? Where does the country failed in this particular situation, in this whole pandemic crisis and the management situation? Where does the country fail if we talk in terms of Fayol's principle?
Uh, So one of the Fayol's principle is order, that everything should be at its particular place. So I believe that that is one place where the administration has been lacking. Moreover, I believe that the Indian bureaucracy is more based on Weberian bureaucracy and a little bit less on Fayol's principle of administration. Uh, Apart from that, I believe that in the current situation, the management of the pandemic, there has been mismanagement, if I may say so, and there has been lack of coordination, and which is one of the most important principle that Fayol propounded, that there should be coordination between different levels of management. So there has been lack of coordination between the center and the state governments, as well as the district administration. So that is one thing where we are lacking.
Okay.
And yeah.
So, my last question to you. We generally say that bureaucracy is, in our country, the bureaucracy is about armchair bureaucracy. That you sit on a place, you just take a decision, you decide it, and then the disbursement of the information takes place. Uh, I want to ask you, what's your view on this? Is our bureaucracy an armchair bureaucracy? And if it is so, what can be done to avoid such situation in the future if you become an administrator? What's your take on that?
Uh, Ma'am, I would beg to differ from your opinion that we have an armchair bureaucracy. Although things do appear from a general citizen's perspective that we have an armchair bureaucracy, but if we look at the ground level, our administrative staff is working day in and day and night, even during the corona pandemic. The district administration is at the helm of affairs, and they are doing their job in dealing with the pandemic, as well as the regular administration. So a number of famous and successful bureaucrats have been there who have went out of their way to work for the people's welfare. So this is just a general perception that I believe that we have about our bureaucracy, and the entire bureaucracy cannot be blamed for something which is there.
Okay, Vinasha, that's it from my side. Thank you so much. I'll come after Sudhanshu sir's session for the feedback.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Abhilasha. How are you?
Hello, sir. I'm fine.
Abhilasha, so you've done your commerce and accountancy graduation, then masters in international business management as well, right? Most of the questions which you must expect coming from these particular areas, rather general administration, but you should be rather ready for that too. Okay, can you tell me what is a common market?
Sir, a common market is basically a regional grouping arrangement between countries, whereby there is common tariff policies for the trading partners of the countries, and then there is also freedom of movement of factors of production in the common market.
Labor can also move around.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you give me 2 examples of common market
Sir,
prevailing these days?
yes, sir. I believe European Union is an example of common market, and the second one I'm not able to recall right now.
Any other unit that is trying to mold itself in that particular market setup, common market?
Sir, I believe ASEAN is moving towards that side since after RCEP has also been signed.
All right. So, what are the benefits that ASEAN is trying to get from this common market setup?
So, reduction in tariffs is one thing, because after the signing of the RCEP, the tariffs between the members will reduce drastically, and apart from that, free movement of factors of production is also a benefit. And sir, I'm not able to recall other benefits.
Anything that common currency is there a stand on common currency as well? Is it beneficial for the entire grouping as a whole?
So European Union has a common currency, euro, and it is beneficial for better trade and better dealing between the members of the common market.
But then, why Britain moved out of it?
Sir, the Brexit that has taken place is because of the referendum that took place in Britain. The people decided that Britain should move out of the European Union framework.
What were the harms that Britain took it upon itself and felt finally that it should move out of the common?
Yes, sir. So Britain was facing a lot of challenges while it was a part of European Union. To name a few, uh, I believe that, sir, I'm not able to, I have to read upon this.
All right, coming to India. Uh, India is known to be a country that is a net exporter of water. What does it mean?
So the kind of exports that India has, we are believed to be a net virtual exporter in water, because we export food grains which are water intensive crops. For example, we are one of the leading exporters of rice. Apart from that, even the textile exports that India has are also water intensive. So, if that is what you mean by being a net exporter of water.
Okay, so water as an entity is stressed in India, right? We are seeing that a lot of regions like Vidarbha and some years back, last year only, there was a zone in Maharashtra where water trains had to be sort of provided so that finally they could fend for themselves. In these situations, what are the steps that government should take to ensure that water consumption is far more optimized?
So first, I believe that proper pricing of water is one thing that should be taken care of. Like the misuse of water is largely due to the subsidized prices of water. Secondly, I believe that the agricultural policies that are there in the country are hugely responsible for poor water usage in the country. The electricity that is being provided to farmers for at subsidized rates has led to exploitation of the groundwater resources in the country in
Do
agriculture.
you think we can learn something from West Asia for because of this water scarce usage that they do at their part? Can we learn something from them?
Yes, sir. Israel being a prominent example, we can learn from Israel that how it utilizes its wastewater, and how it converts the salty or the ocean water into drinking water for use in various places. So that is something that we can learn from our West Asian partners. And also the increasing the use efficiency of the use of water, and properly planning our land use pattern is also something that can be learned from there, because the cropping pattern in the country is largely
Okay, tell me what Israel does to convert its desaline. I mean, this water. This SAR water into usable potable water. What it does?
uh, sir, I'm not totally aware of the technology, but I believe it uses the reverse osmosis technology for conversion of water into usable water.
Israel used to be a water deficit, but now it's water surplus and is supplying water to Jordan and other countries nearby. So actually, but Israel is a very small, state country in that manner. But if you look at Iran, Iraq, other states who generally face a lot of, these deforestation and desert areas, they have it. So how have they inculcated such water stress in their, life and made their life in tune with the nature? So is there something that we can learn from them?
So from other countries. Sir, apart from Israel, I'm not able to recall.
Okay, fine. Looking at how China is building a dam on Brahmaputra, India is also expected to sort of face this water crisis again. How do you see this situation growing up?
So
And
the
what steps India should take?
China building dam over Brahmaputra River. Sir, I believe that India should maintain its stand, and it should establish communication channels with China, so, for proper communication of the infrastructures and the dams that are being built on the river. we don't have a formal treaty arrangement with China regarding to this. So steps should be taken for proper communication regarding the same. Apart from that, we should have the top leadership should also cooperate in this regard, because China, being an upper riparian state in Brahmaputra, has a leeway in this regard. So we should make sure that our share of water is not being utilized by China.
Do you think building a dam on Brahmaputra will actually impact India to a huge extent, so far as Brahmaputra water is concerned?
So apart from the water availability, the issue of flood is also there, because if China is able to build a dam at such a strategic location, then it can regulate the flow of water in Arunachal Pradesh and Assam as well. So that might affect the flood situation and the disaster situation there as well. So I believe China can have a leeway if it moves forward with such a situation.
Coming back to West Asia, why is it also called Middle East?
Sir, I'm not aware of this.
Okay. Have you heard of the term Zolvarine?
Sir, can you please come again?
Zolvarine.
No, sir.
Have you learnt about unification of Germany?
So yeah, I did read about it during the mains examination.
You've known terrorism as an issue that India has been sort of placing it at the international pedestal quite often, and countries, especially America, could not pay attention to it till it faced 9/11. Right at that time, it talked about either the world is with us and fighting against the terrorism, or it is against us. So it's a very strong statement made by who made that statement?
Sir, I'm not able to recall, but yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, Abhilasha, so at that time, world paid attention to this problem of terrorism. In this regard, UN Resolution 1267 is very important. What is that?
Sir, I'm not able to recall the exact resolution.
Okay. Okay. So, to what extent do you see that India में north and south का disparity है?
North and south disparity in India. Sir, the disparity is there. I wouldn't say that it is not there, because a number of things differentiate between people in the north and south, be it the cultural aspect or the development demographic aspect, because the southern states are believed to be much more developed. If you look at Kerala and if you draw a comparison with states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, so the states differ in terms of development parameters. Apart from that, there is also the difference regarding to the agricultural practices. Like the north is the kind of cropping pattern that we have in the north is different from that of the south. The fruits of green revolutions were mostly seen in the northern area, particularly in the states of Haryana, UP and Bihar. The same were not that visible in the southern India. Then cultural aspects are also there, which creates a difference between the north and the south. The cultural practices of the people are different. The eating habits and the religious practices.
Right. I actually wanted to restrict it to political and economic sense only. Great. So let me also sort of complete my feedback with you, right? My part that there is a lot that is expected out of you so far as your DAF is concerned, given your academic background, given your credentials so far. A bit of history is also very important, right? This unification of Germany has this Zollverein term that they united in creating a common market. So when we talk about common market in the European Union, and then you got this ASEAN as well, pretty much on track. Then Zollverein is a natural question that came to my mind, whether you're aware of that or not. Now that is one. Dam building in Brahmaputra obviously plays it places very critical entity called water at the at a diplomatic table. But at the same time, given that we are not able to resolve find an amicable way out, water wars which are actually been conjectured कि आने वाले समय में होने वाला है, so that could be a reality. But yes, diplomatically we'll have to sort that out. When I asked about whether water in Brahmaputra, when it is stopped, is it actually that much critical for India or not? So geographically and topographically, India doesn't rely on what comes from Rakas Valley and Mansarovar from this entire river is coming. India doesn't really get a lot of water coming from that. Yarlang Sampo, this is what is called over there. India actually has a lot of water coming into Brahmaputra because of the rain that we get from the monsoons. So because of the funnel nature of the topography, so India doesn't really bother. But yes, one very important highlighted point was the dam causing flood. So that is one good point. Challenges with respect to terrorism are expected. India time and again said the 1267 resolution is about terrorism and Osama bin Laden. So and trying to ensure that these groups in and around Pakistan, Haqqani network and all, they are all put behind bars. And especially important because India has been time and again talking about the resolution to be implemented with respect to Hafiz Saeed and these people, those who are fomenting terror in activities in southern Kashmir. So these were questions in addition to what economic background you have. So I asked these questions because most of the ones were asked by other panelists before. So okay, Abhilasha, that was it from my end. Any question?
So how much should I go into the history aspect, because it has been quite a while that I have read history.
When you have prepared for this exam and given that unification of Germany, Italy, they were all studied, right? It is not about how much deeper you should go. It is about remembering and connecting. So if you, being an economist, can connect to a past that has been a triggered history, then economically they all came together and created a common future for themselves. This will give you a better perspective while dealing with the questions. So you can use them as examples as well. That यहाँ पर ऐसा हुआ था, तो nicely they turned into such a huge and developed state, a country these days. So इस तरह से एक अच्छा perspective आता है. So you should try that out. ठीक है? चलो, all the best, Abhilasha.
Thank you, sir.
So, Abhilasha, how did you feel? How was your interview?
Ma'am, it wasn't really that good.
No, it's good. It's fine. That over here you can make a lot of mistakes, right? Over there you cannot do any mistake. Fine. So overall, you have a very pleasant personality. You are answering well in a very well structured manner. Only thing I want to know is that sometimes you are using very extreme words. Like sir also pointed out, you used the word pathetic, right? Yes. So yeah, so avoid using such extreme. You are a bureaucrat, right? You have to be impartial, you have to be unbiased, everything, right? So avoid using such extremities in your answer. Again, when I asked you how Delhi is dealing with all this crisis, you said that no parties could be blamed, or it's not a part of one party. Party ki baat hi nahi aayi thi yahan pe, right? Yahan pe to when you are talking about when you are talking about the stakeholders, government bolo. Party bolna is like you are pointing to someone. When you are a bureaucrat, you have to deal with these things, right? So extreme words pe thoda sa avoid using extreme words, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
then sensitization पे सर ने भी पूछा, मैंने भी आपको पूछा कि what is the impact on women, ठीक है? तो जब ये part आता है, when you are asked about being a woman, the answer should come from your heart. ऐसा लगना चाहिए कि it's you who is feeling the pain, it's you who is answering the question. इस तरह से answer करने की कोशिश करो, ठीक है? That you are sensitized, you are already knowing the issue, whatever things are happening, you are very well aware of those things. ठीक है? तो being a woman, these things are expected from you. ठीक है? General point मत बोलो, whatever you feel really, मतलब give a thinking to this कि भाई really impact क्या हो रहा है women पे. We belong to a section कि हम लोग शायद इतनी vulnerability नहीं देख पा रहे हैं, but other sections are facing lot of problems. ठीक है? तो आंगनवाड़ी and all these things, these are मेंस के आंसर के लिए ठीक है, बट यहाँ पे प्रैक्टिकलिटी देखनी है, ठीक है? हाउ प्रैक्टिकल द सॉल्यूशंस कुड बी, ठीक है? तो पहले साइकोलॉजिकल बेसिस पे देखो, एजुकेशनल बेसिस पे देखो, हेल्थ केयर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बेसिस पे देखो. दीज थिंग्स शुड कम टू योर माइंड, राइट? Then armchair bureaucracy answer was very nice, that you differed from my view, so that was a good thing. You took a stand. और मतलब these things should be there कि positive attitude एक रखना है. Your positive attitude should be reflected, ठीक है? कहीं कहीं पे ऐसा फील आ रहा है that you are not very happy with the system, and that is getting reflected in your answers, ठीक है? All of us we are facing problems, ठीक है? System में थोड़ा दिक्कत है, but that cannot be reflected in your answer. You should be like, you should you should get a positive approach. Optimistic बन के देखना है, everything. ठीक है, दिखना क्या है, we have to be optimistic. There is no other way forward, right? So with these and very nicely you are
Abhilasha ji,
answering.
I have already given you my feedback.
Yes, sir.
Keep a positive view. Don't use very harsh words, but use appropriate words. And when people ask about your opinion, express your opinion very categorically.
Okay.
Don't hesitate. You will do wonderfully well. You have got a nice
Thank you.
personality. So
Thank you, sir.
wish you all the very best. And आपका interview के लिए अभी time है. So if you want, maybe after 10-15 days, you can do another mock.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Abhilasha. Thank you. All the best. Chalo, Abhilasha. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other question you want to ask?
Ma'am, मेरा physical demeanor में is there something changed like behavioral aspect में?
No, that doesn't require anything. See, your personality is very pleasant. ठीक है? You don't have any other problem. Answer करने में भी you are thinking and then answering. It's just that sometimes it happens. देखो जब दिल से चीजें रहती हैं ना, तो it happens कि हम लोग वो tend हो जाते हैं हम लोग उसके तरफ. But you have to keep a positive attitude. ठीक है, तो उस पे थोड़ा सा प्रैक्टिस करो. जस्ट गो इनटू द मिरर, लुक योरसेल्फ इनटू द मिरर, ट्राई टू यूज एप्रोप्रिएट वर्ड्स इवन व्हेन यू आर रीडिंग द न्यूज़पेपर्स. तो वहां पे भी कोशिश करो ये देखने की कि एक अप्रोच में ऑप्टिमिज्म कैसे आ रहा है, राइट? दैट यू हैव टू फॉलो. अप्रोच में हमेशा ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रहो बिकॉज यू आर गोइंग टू अ ब्यूरो. ठीक है, रेस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स आर फाइन. ऑल द बेस्ट.
Thank you, ma'am.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil's Daily.